All right, I am back. It's now been 3 months since I last recorded, and it's been 3 months since I first started using the Yaesu 2900. Bottom line, I like it. It's a good, solid radio. I have no question about its longevity. Knock on wood. Um, I think it's going to be a good radio, and it's going to last a very, very, very long time. And at least that is my hope. There are a few things about the radio that I don't really like. The first one being the wobble, but I did fix that. I put it on a mouse pad for a while, and that was okay. But I found that the casting on the coating on the outside of the aluminum body, there was this lump of it that was just on the bottom that was, maybe a 32nd to a 16th of an inch thick. And it was just causing that unevenness and that wobble. And so I just got a file and filed it down, and that took the black coating off of the portion that I filed down and exposed the actual aluminum. But what do I care? It's pretty much cosmetic, and it's such a small little blemish, and you can't even see it when the radio is sitting on the desk. You actually have to lift it up and look at it. So that was fixable. Still annoying, but it was fixable. The other thing that I do not particularly like about the radio, and I'm going to cut in a video here, the DTMF mic. It's a pretty good mic system. The push-to-talk button, it is more sensitive than, let me rephrase that. It's more easier to activate than I am used to on my other speaker mics. But I got used to it very, very quickly, and I don't even think about it anymore. I just use it, and I don't have any problems with it. I don't have any problems with accidentally keying the mic. The other thing with the DTMF mic, let me turn it here. The buttons are flush with the casing, with the shell, and the keypad buttons are pretty small. And so because they're flush and they're small, they are a little bit challenging to push in. And so if you're pushing these in with your thumb, it is going to be a little bit difficult. I don't use them all that much. Because I don't really need it, but I do have to press the star button to enter and leave memory bank mode. Like right now, it's just on regular memory mode. I hit the star button, and then it goes into memory bank 1. I hit the pound button, and then it will go into memory bank 2. I can hit the pound button, and it will go back to 1. If I had memory banks 3 and 4, hitting the pound button would just cycle through them all. But I only have 2 memory banks. And then there's the top buttons on the DTMF mic that I can use to go up and down channels, or if I was in frequency mode, up and down frequencies. And I just press and hold down one of those top buttons, and it will just start scanning through the frequencies. Right now in memory bank 1, I only have 3 memory channels programmed into. The first one being my club's repeater frequency, which uses a frequency of 146.94. I'm doing all this from the DTMF mic, by the way, with buttons that are programmed to do this stuff. And so I usually hang out on this frequency a lot during the day, or I'm at least scanning through it, because this is my club's repeater, the Idaho Society of Radio Amateurs, I should say. And then the other frequency, of course, is the National Calling Simplex frequency. And then I have a frequency program into here that my daughter and I use. She is a licensed ham, and her name is Hannah. And I use this frequency, or we use this frequency whenever she is at school. And so I scan through these frequencies through most of the weekday. And then in the evening, I will bump it up to Memory Bank 2, which has some more repeaters and some more frequencies. And then I can scan through all those fairly easily. And so it's a fairly straightforward radio once you become familiar with it. There really isn't a whole lot of challenges with it. Off the top of my head, I would have no idea how to program this radio right now. I did it when I first got it, and I got it all in there. It wasn't too difficult to learn how to do it. It was just a little tedious to do it because there's a lot of buttons to push. And I can't imagine doing it with the DTMF mic just because of how small the buttons are and the amount of focus that you have to actually activate the buttons. I did it all with the buttons that are nonsensically labeled on the front of the radio. The buttons are labeled pretty nonsensically, such as the one on the far left, L. That is actually the wires feature of the Yaesu. and I never use it because there's nothing here in my area that can utilize that feature, and I likely never will use it. So it's a pointless button for me. The next button, set and megahertz. I think set is supposed to be settings abbreviated, but what it really is the menu button. And for all these labels, to activate whatever the top label says, to do that, let me stop the scan here. To do that, you push and hold the button in. So let me push and hold the set megahertz button, and that will go into the menu structure of the radio. And then you can cycle through all these, pushing the top left and right buttons on the DTMF mic, or you can use the tuning knob on the radio itself. And then, let me push and hold that to get out of the menu. And to activate the bottom label on those buttons, you just push the buttons once. And so for, in this case, megahertz, if you are in a memory channel that has an alpha tag, such as with this one, ISRA, you push the megahertz button once, and it's going to show the frequency of the that is associated with the alpha tag. And then we can go back here. So the next... I'm laughing here because, like, the next button, I have no idea what DW stands for. Not a clue. I could push and hold it in and find out, but I don't really want to do that here because I don't want to mess up a setting and then have to fix it. But RAV, we push that once and it goes into reverse mode. So if you're on a memory channel that uses a repeater system with an offset, then it's going to go into reverse mode. Let's show the frequency here, and let's go into reverse mode. You can see it actually changed the frequency. There you go. And so that's the repeater's listening frequency. And then you can go back and hit the button again and go back to the actually saved listening frequency. The next button, A/N, no clue. I'm laughing here because it just makes no sense. I can't even think of what that would be. Low, that has to do with power. You push that once, it's not going to go into low power. All it does is move up to the next power level. I don't know why they didn't label that POW or PWR, but hey, that's definitely Yaesu for you, and don't make a lot of sense. Let me show you how that works. So you push it, and it's going to go up to the next power level. Push it again, next, and then all the way up to high. You push it again, and it goes back down to level 1, which is 5 watts. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. These buttons crack me up. And so you got the final button, MW, and then D/MR. I think that was a button that I used when I was programming the radio. Maybe MR is memory. I don't know. No clue. I obviously do not use that button hardly at all. You can look it up in the manual and find out, but it just seems like they could have labeled these things a little bit better. A nitpicky thing, yet a silly thing that I do like to laugh at. Thanks, Yaesu. And the other issue that some people have cropped up with, but I really have not, is a heat issue. When I first had it installed under my shelf, it worked fine, and I never once got a heat warning from the radio. There are some reviewers that say that their radio always is getting hot, and the radio is always beeping at them, mad that it's getting hot. That never happened to me. I did monitor the temperature fairly frequently, and I still do. Let me stop the scan here. Let's move back to memory bank 1. All right, so there are some programmable buttons on the DTMF mic, and one of the buttons I programmed to, once I push it, it shows me the temperature. And so the temperature right now is just a hair over 85 degrees. Not bad at all. When the radio was installed underneath my shelf, it would get up to about 130, 135 on just a 10-minute QSO that I was using 5 watts on. And it wasn't an SWR problem. I had actually replaced my coax cable, installed a balun because I was worried about some common mode current just because of how I had the coax run going into my ham shack. So I replaced the ham shack, I wish I could replace my ham shack. This puppy's small. So I replaced the feed line. I put in a balun. I did my own connectors, and so I know that they're solidly put in. And the temperature the temperature got a little bit better. And so I knew I didn't have a significant SWR problem. I had that tested. The thing that helped the most was actually moving the radio, because with the radio installed under the shelf, the heat would just stay trapped in the radio itself. And it took a long time to dissipate that heat. But since then, I have moved the radio on top of my file cabinet right next to my desk. And because of that, because there's nothing on top of it and there's just natural air circulation going around it, I didn't modify the radio. I didn't install a fan, did nothing like that like you've seen on some videos, or that you may have seen on some videos. It's just natural air circulation around it, and the heat can just dissipate right out of it immediately. And because of that, the temperature rarely gets above 120 degrees inside the radio. So if you are planning on installing this in your vehicle, like underneath your dash, you're going to need to consider a way that to ensure that you have proper way to vent the heat out of it. Because even with the heat sink, this huge George Foreman grill heat sink that this radio has, if there's something on top of it, that heat just can't flow straight up. It's going to be restricted. And so a lot of that heat's going to stay in the radio, and the radio is going to get more and more warm. You may have no problem at all with it. Like I said, I never got a heat warning. Not once, with it being installed on the shelf. I just wanted to find a way to get the temperature as controlled as I could, because in my mind, the cooler the radio is, the longer it's going to last, and the longer the QSO I can have. So that's just food for thought there. So the power levels, right now it's on level 1, which is going to be 5 watts. And so I push the low button for the power, and I'm at low 2, and I'm at low 3, and then high. So you got low 1, low 2, low 3, and high. Why not low 1, low 2, medium, and high? Or better yet, why not 5 watts, 10 watts, 30 watts, or 75 watts? Why not label it that way? It's just one of those little irritants, but I know what they are, so I've gotten used to it. But it's just one of those silly things. It might bug some people. And I think that those are the power settings. I think it's 5, 10, 30, and 75. It might be 5, 10, 25, 75. There's some misinformation on the internet about that, and I don't really know what it is. Actually programming the radio, it isn't too difficult once you read the instructions. It's pretty straightforward, but it is a little tedious because you have a lot of buttons to push. A lot. And there is programmable software. But I don't really want to pay the, $35-$40 to get the thing from Yaesu. And plus, I have a Mac, and I'm pretty sure that the software that Yaesu has to offer to program it is a Windows-only thing. And yes, I know I can do VMware Fusion, I can do Parallels, or I can do Boot Cramp and get Windows on there, but I just don't want to have anything to do with Windows. I don't like virtualization. And so I was hoping that this radio could be programmed with Chirp, but as of right now, it cannot, which is kind of surprising because this radio has been around for a while. And that's not a criticism of Chirp, because Chirp is a volunteer thing. It's an open source thing. And so it's not like I paid for Chirp and they're neglecting their duties by not providing support for the 2900. I think Chirp is a great program. You just need to be sure that your radio is supported before you buy your radio, if you plan on using Chirp with it. All right, audio. As far as the internal speaker goes, it's okay. It's not terrific, but it certainly isn't terrible. I think in the ham shack, it's going to be adequate for most people. If you are going to be installing the radio in a vehicle for mobile operations, I really think you're going to want to get a secondary speaker. And when you plug a secondary speaker into the audio port in the back of the radio, it will turn off the internal speaker of the radio. You cannot have both of them running simultaneously. It's one or the other. Now for the mic, I've always intended to set up a recording device sitting next to my scanner that's in the other room so that I can hear what I sound like when I'm on 2 meter here. But I never have done it yet. But people who were accustomed to hearing me on my Yaesu FT60R handheld with its speaker mic, when I switched to the 2900, those people said that there was a marked difference. They said that the audio quality had improved. It sounded clearer, crisper, more fidelity, just overall better. And so I think that the mic on this 2900 is a really, really good mic. Overall, I really recommend this radio. I like it. The few complaints that I have about it, most of them are fixable or at least tolerable, and they really don't have to do with the overall functionality of the radio itself. I read some complaints that some people are grumpy that it doesn't do 70 centimeter, but that's a really ridiculous argument because it's not a 70 centimeter radio, it's a 2-meter radio. If you wanted one that did both, they have. Yaesu has radios that do both. What a bunch of morons. So for a 2-meter rig, I really, really like it. Please do your own research first because you may have a question that I did not address in this video. And that does lead me to say, if you do have any questions or if you think I should amend this video with anything, send me an email at w7kbx@w7kbx.com. That is Whiskey 7 Kilo Bravo X-Ray at Whiskey 7 Kilo Bravo X-Ray.com. And that is also my website, w7kbx.com, which I invite you to check out. Thanks for watching. I know I'm a windbag, but that's one of the reasons that I got involved with ham radio to begin with. 7-3, y'all. Okay, I'm going to amend the video. I already thought of a question that some of you may be wondering. How on earth do I use my radio when it's on top of the file cabinet? Don't I have to always be standing when I'm using the radio? What about how long is the cord of my mic? Isn't it hugely inconvenient? Blah, blah, blah. So, let me show you what I do. It's on top. Well, it's actually on a shelf with it, which is on top of my file cabinet. There's a power supply for it. There's allergy meds because I'm a nerd. So I plugged in, I think it's an RJ12 cord. I think that's its designation. You might want to look it up and find out if that's the right thing for the radio if you guys want to do something like this. Don't take my word for it. So I think it's something like, I don't know, 10, 12 feet long. So it's plugged in there to the mic port of the radio itself, and it comes down here. Not exactly pretty. If I wanted to, I could actually route this so it's not an eyesore, but it works for now. And it comes back down here behind the desk and hooks up to this coupler right here. And into that coupler on the other end is the actual DTMF mic. And I can control pretty much every aspect of the radio from that mic. There are only two things that I cannot control, and one of them is volume. And volume is a pretty important thing. And so the way that I was able to solve that is I got an audio extension cable that plugs into the audio port in the back of the radio. That comes down here behind my desk and through the hole in back. And right here, you probably can't see it, but I know where it is and I can feel it. There's a knob on there with an inline volume control. And plugged into that is an MFJ speaker, which is right there. And so I can control everything from my desk except for squelch. And I rarely have to get up and adjust squelch, maybe once or twice a month when I'm doing a simplex net, if that. I don't even think I've gotten up at all in the last month to adjust squelch. I got it set perfectly where it goes, and it works. So how do I see what's on the screen? Well, you may have noticed I got a webcam pointed right at the screen, a USB webcam. $10 is all this puppy cost me. It's not a bad little webcam for what I'm using it for. And then on my computer, on the computer screen, I have a window which is just, it's showing whatever the webcam sees. It's not recording, it's just displaying what the webcam sees. And so with the DTMF mic, I can manipulate the radio, go up and down the memory channels. I can enter memory bank mode. I can scan, whatever I want to do. The only thing I can't do from the desk is adjust the squelch. Everything else I can do. It's a pretty nice setup. I like it.